Welcome, Dr. Bill.
Well, hello.
Yeah, hello, Dr. Bill. So we will start in a bit.
Do you read me?
Yeah, we
Yes, sir,
can.
loud and clear.
Very good. Thank you.
So, Samar, we are waiting for Robert
Now,
as
Robert
well to
might
join.
be in no, he will join later. So let's start. Good evening to everyone. So, like we have gathered here to discuss the topic rise of radical Islam in the world, and we have with us Dr. Bill Warner. I would like to introduce Dr. Bill Warner. Yet, Dr. Bill Warner is a PhD and is a respected expert on political Islam. He's an international speaker, author, as well as a blogger. And Warner analyzes Islamic doctrine using scientific methods and evaluations from Islamic trilogy of Quran, the Sirah, Muhammad's biography, and the Hadith, and the traditions of Muhammad. He has also founded the Center of Study of Political Islam, that is CSPI, and Center for the Study of Political Islam, that is CSPII, to explore and educate about Islamic ideology and its ramifications for Western civilization. And as an author, in 2021, Bill Warner has written the book the Other Side of Fence: 6 Decades of Motorsport Photography. That involves photographs of involving the motorsport. Also, his best-selling books have been Life of Muhammad, published in 2015. Another one is Sharia Law for Non-Muslims, published in 2010. Also, he has written Tuwa Quran, published in 2010. Also, for the sake of women, he has also written Islamic Doctrine of Women, published in 2010. So, I would like to welcome Dr. Bill on behalf of all the people present over here. Bawali Baba, over to you now.
Yeah. So,
Thank you for your introduction. This is yesterday afternoon was the first time I've ever used Twitter in my life. So this is now the second time. So I didn't know how smoothly this would go. Had some anxieties about it. One of the reasons I've never used Twitter, my wife uses it to post things on for me, is that I in general try to stay as far away from technology stuff as possible, in spite of the fact that I have a degree in physics. And the reason is I want to spend most of my time thinking and studying the doctrine of Islam. There are a lot of people who can use Twitter. The world is not better off for having one more of those. Anyway, what I would like to talk to you about is I see from the guest, I don't know, what do you call it, guest list or people who are listening, is that there are many who are Hindus. And I would like to say that I've been speaking with Hindus for years. I've also spoken with all kinds of people over the years. And what I've always talked about is what is the true nature of Islam? And I use a scientific approach. But what I want to do today is I want to discuss something slightly different. Is that we need something that is going to deal with the problem of Islam. My vision of Islam is this. If we do not defeat it, I didn't say compromise with it, learn to live with it. If we do not defeat political Islam, our civilizations will die. The Hindu civilization and the Christian civilization have many things in common, even though they spend most of their time, if they're together, arguing with each other. And one of those is a common morality. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Islam doesn't have this morality. It has treat a person how they are to be treated. That is, are they Muslim or Kafir, non-Muslim? So what I have become more interested in, other than analyzing Islam, is to come up with a method which we can use to defeat Islam. My original concept with all of this was, I'm a scholar. And so I thought when I published my books, which made the doctrine of Islam for the first time easy to understand, and I coined the term political Islam because so much of the doctrine of Islam is about the kafir, people like you and me. So I'm interested in dealing with the kafir, which I call political Islam, because the kafir is certainly not part of religious Islam. But so I've done that study. I've written books over the years. And now then what I'm interested in doing is changing what I'm doing to create an organization. Because as individuals, we will never defeat Islam. Warriors do not defeat armies. and we're faced with an army. And so when I first put my books out, I thought as a scholar who's tend towards activity that people would run to get the books and use them. And what I discovered was that sure enough, most people ran for my books, but in the other direction. That is, they didn't want to know. And part of the reason they didn't want to know is that to act against Islam by yourself seems impossible. As a matter of fact, it is impossible. So what I wanted to do is to put together an organization that was intellectually based, that is based on sound principles, but at the same time, its purpose was to defeat political Islam. That organization is called Center for the Study of Political Islam International. We're now, as a matter of fact, I've just left a conference, a world conference. We have in Center for the Study of Political Islam International, we have, I think, members from 36 nations. When we give a lecture to the Minister of the Interior in Spain, it's done in native Spanish. When we give a talk to the Austrian Secret Service, it's done in German. So we have, I think, 36 nations are members of our organization. We see Islam as a global problem that demands an international solution. And so that's what we're in the business. That's what my main focus is now, is how to create this organization so that we can defeat Islam with our own army. This is ideological war, and you fight war with armies. So what we want to do in this system of training is to have different levels of membership, different levels of working. For instance, we've met with people at the Ministry of the Interior of France, Spain, Chile. We've spoken to many places. But what we want to do is also to be able to speak to anyone in any nation. And so that's what we're putting our work into. We train you in my methods, which are very different from the average way of studying Islam. And so that we give you an intellectual basis. After this, you can do many things, high-level things or low-level things. High-level things would be, for instance, we're going to create an international conference on jihad. Because if you try to go to the conferences that deal with terrorism, as they call it, you discover very quickly that they want to hear nothing but peace, peace, peace. Some version of Islam is a religion of peace. And we want to have an international conference in which we deal with the actual facts. So that is what I want to focus on today in talking to you, is how can we take and defeat Islam? Not how can we take and learn about Islam, but defeat it. Because if we do not defeat it, we will be defeated as a civilization and simply cease to exist. India should be very familiar with this. India has suffered more than anyone else except Africa on the subject of jihad. I did a rough series of calculations and made these computations. There have been 60 million Christians killed in 1,400 years, 80 million Hindus, 10 million Buddhists, and 120 million Africans. That's a lot of people. These people need to be recognized, but they need to be recognized through an effort to stop this business happening. So we need to be able to work with a group. And we need to be able to work, not only just be in a group, but to work with a group. That is, we're team players. There are things that we can do that are very simple. For instance, here's the example of the simplest project we will teach people how to work on, is how to create a comment on army, so that when something is written on the web that deals with a lie about dealing with Islam, is that we will correct it in the comment section. Now, this is a small action, but if it's done with coordinated people, you can create an impact. Let me tell you this. I started watching the web right after 9/11, 2001. And at first, coming onto the comment section were Muslims, apologists for Islam, and those who knew something about Islam. Well, over the years, what has slowly happened is in the comment section, the apologists for Islam and Muslims don't quote so much anymore because the logic and reason of those commenters who know Islam have been able to overpower them. So we can achieve some minor success here. So we want to be able to do simple jobs like the one I just said, which is commenting. We have one member who's created a whole very inexpensive way of dealing with this. In the United States, just a second. In the United States, shopping malls where the food courts are considered public speech areas. And so we have one gentleman who's had an overwhelming success of going in California on Friday to the mall and handing out brochures on top of a little 1 meter square table. This has worked very well. He hands out nearly 1,000 brochures a week. This seems like a small thing, 1,000 brochures in a nation of 300 million. But these are people who are interested, and we're educating them on the street. I'm giving you this just as a small example of what can be done with common citizens. There are many other things that we have planned, groups and committees we want to put together. But like I say, I wanted to introduce you to the idea that it is not necessarily not only to learn Islam, but we must also be able to do something about it. One of the things that we're teaching people how to use is proper language. For instance, we never use the word terror. Instead, we use the word jihad. We teach people an entire language because you can't use proper thoughts if you don't use the proper words. So that's one of the things we teach people who become members. We teach people how to debate and argue. It turns out that most of the arguments you'll hear that support Islam are all the same. I wrote a book called Factual Persuasion, and as a consequence of writing that book, I have educated many people, but all the members who join CSPII, Center for the Study of Political Islam International, will also know all this material. So we will be having trained people. For instance, we want to have people who are trained in debate. There's two kinds of debate about Islam. One is the average ordinary person, and then the other is a skilled Muslim Brotherhood debater. So we need to know how to debate both kinds of people, and we will teach people how to do this so that we will, if you will, pick fights so that we can impress people with the fact that there is something to be known about Islam. Most people think that you can't learn about Islam. It's an odd thing. They will agree that American intellectuals will agree that an illiterate Muslim can understand Islam, but they would not agree that a PhD in physics would be able to understand Islam as long as he's a kafir. We need to be able to overcome those kinds of arguments. It is my opinion that the most important war that will be fought is the hybrid war of this century. Hybrid war in the sense of it's not only standard bullets and bombs war, but the war of ideas. The wars of ideas are permanent. In Spain, they fought for 700 years to throw the Muslims out of Spain. They won the bullets and bombs, in this case swords and arrows, part of the war. But now then they've forgotten all of the ideology, and Spain is filling up once again with Muslims. And the Spanish don't even seem to realize that a new war is being fought and they're losing it. So, let's see, what else do I need to tell you as an introduction? Tell you what let's do. Do you have any questions about what I've said so far?
Yeah. So,
Baba, just a moment. I would like to tell the people present over here. Actually, the space is not visible when it starts, right? So I would request everyone to share the link of the space so that more people can join. Another thing that I want to tell you over here is the views expressed are by the speaker, right? So, like, it entirely depends what the speaker wants to say. Okay, Baba, please continue.
Yeah, so Dr. Bill,
They're definitely my opinions.
yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Bill, thank you for such a great introduction
No
and
questions?
for sharing. Yeah, so I have a question. So many a times we
Well, I
get.
thought that would have stirred up more questions.
Yeah, sure. So I'm asking that question. One of the thing is that most of the
One of the
time.
things, practical matter, that has hurt us in creating Center for the Study of Political Islam International has been the COVID virus. We now have to meet by Zoom meetings. And although a Zoom meeting is a strange form, a Twitter meeting is a strange form of Zoom, we don't have faces. But nevertheless, it's not the same as being in the same room with people. The strangeness of Zoom, which is what we use mostly, is, when I say strangeness, it's a distance. And it means it's difficult to have easy creative idea flow. You just don't have the same creativity in a Zoom group, or for that matter in a Twitter group, as you can in sitting in the same room with them.
Absolutely, we agree with what you said. Next time we will continue with this session on YouTube as well, if you like wish. Okay, Baba, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
So one of the question I basically
So
face
sorry, Baba.
while
Sorry, Baba. Just one thing. Summer, can you just ask Bill if he's able to hear us? Bill, are you able to hear everyone?
Yes,
Okay,
quite
Yeah,
great,
loud.
yeah,
great.
yeah. He is able to hear. Yeah, Baba, please
Great,
okay.
great.
continue.
So one of the question that we face most of the time is that
Okay, here's
is
here's a personal problem that I have. My wife changed the schedule on my car on my calendar and didn't tell me about it. And so I'm left a meeting, a world conference to join this. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to leave this meeting in 5 minutes. I truly apologize for this, but I lead a very busy life, and I just didn't handle my local business well. So, but do you have any questions to ask before I leave in 6 minutes?
Yeah, I think Baba, you can go ahead.
yeah. So one of the question most of the time we face is that Islam is much more than a religion. It is a political doctrine masquerading as a religion. So what is your view on this? Is it something true, or what's your opinion about it?
Well, I guess not.
So
Well, either the technology is not working in the way that I thought it would, or the subject which I brought up to discuss is not of interesting to the audience.
Um,
Which
Bill,
is it?
are you able to hear us?
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
hear
So
me?
He is
yeah,
able
yeah,
to
I can.
hear you. Just get back to the topic what Bill was discussing. Let's
Yeah.
discuss that
So
particular topic.
So I think, Bill, one of the questions which everybody here has is that, there is a certain way in which Islam is being projected nowadays where, there is a version called moderate Muslims and there's a version called radical. So is that a different doctrine or we need to be aware of?
We need to define our words. Fuzzy words lead to fuzzy thinking. Did you use the term radical and moderate? Because there's different ways of putting this. If you say someone is moderate, what is the scale you're measuring their moderation on? Well, for most people, moderation means, well, I don't think this Muslim that will take part in jihad. So that's what you mean by moderate. He seems like a nice man. But for a Muslim, moderation consists not of being what you think a nice man is. Moderation is dictated by what is allowed and what is not allowed. And so this means that moderation, it is allowed, for instance, to murder in the name of Islam under certain circumstances. We might call that radical, but it is actually moderate Islam. But what measures moderation? Quran, Sirah, Hadith, Sunnah, and Quran, Allah and Muhammad. So if Muhammad had, say, someone assassinated, deceived and assassinated, that is moderation under Islam. You may say, well, deceit is not moderation. Killing is not moderation. Those are based on your ethics, your ethical principles. So we need to make our words very precise. And one of those is moderate, because Osama bin Laden's attack on the World Trade Towers in 2001, September 11th, was moderation. They were yelling Allahu Akbar. That is, this is an act for God. Well, if you're a religious person, an act for your God is moderation, because that's what's established your principles of thought and reasoning. So I find that a whole lot of the problems that we're dealing in the subject of Islam is that we don't use the right words. I earlier used the term, we don't use the word terrorism usually, because what we want to do is to say it is jihad. The reason that these two words are very different is terrorism is a tactic that anyone can do, whereas jihad is something that only a Muslim can do. It has a set of rules that go with it. My phone began to ring loud and clear and all day long when September 11, 2001 came about. and the planes hit the tower. People said to me, "You said something was going to happen. How did you know?" Well, I said, I read the playbook. And when Osama bin Laden called the United States to Islam, I said, oh, we're in trouble. Because it was Muhammad's method, his moderation, was to issue a call to Islam before he attacked someone. He preferred to attack in the morning. He preferred for it to be a sneak attack. And he preferred for it to be an economic center. Well, the word trade tower, I think trade expresses the idea that this was a commercial enterprise. So I seemed intelligent in saying these things to people, like I could predict the future. Like I was able to say that we were going to lose the war in Iraq and lose the war in Afghanistan long, long before they announced the end of the war. Why? Because our military did not study the doctrine of jihad. They didn't know who the enemy was. So we had 18 generals in 20 years, and it was to no effect. We lost because we never fully engaged the war. We fought war like we thought it should be fought. If you're going to fight against an enemy, you need to know his enemy and you need to know his war doctrine. And so that's my response to moderate and extreme. Now, I'm apologizing to you again. If you all want to do this again, and this on my third time of using Twitter, I'll probably be better. I don't know that my brains will be any better, but I'll still have be able to answer questions. I'll still have time to answer questions for as long as you want. Well, I have about 30 seconds to go. I'll apologize one more time for my incompetence. One of the things, if you deal with me in America, we have a concept called the absent-minded professor, which means someone who is highly involved in intellectual pursuits and sort of the world passes him by. And I'm afraid you got caught a little in that, and along with my wife handling my calendar. So I apologize for my shortness. If you found what I've just said interesting, invite me back, and I'll guarantee you can talk as long as you want me to. So thank you so much for your kind attention now. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
So, Samar, I think Robert is also here with us.
Robert has joined us. Robert, I'm offering you the mic. Kindly accept it, please.
Samar, let's continue to the same point. Dr. Bill concluded the Jihad Watch and radical political Islam very well. And we believe in solution. So what kind of solution world should adopt? Universally or anonymous?